once again. And I hope you are doing good. In this first session of SAP Business Object Business Intelligence 4.1, we have set up the agenda for the day where we are going to look into first of all, hello Mr. Kananan, hello Mr. Jabralin. Warm welcome to this world of business object. Let me tell you guys the agenda for the day and then we are good to start. As I have mentioned, you can see into this presentation where we have three topics for the day. One, we are going to look into the architecture of business object business intelligence 4.1. The second, we are going to look into the first tool offered inside the business object business intelligence 4.1, which is Web Rich Client tool and its functionality. Then at the end, we are going to run one question and answer round where you can ask questions, and even I'm going to ask some of the questions related to the session so that we can revise what we have learned today. So these are the three topics, these are the three set up the goals for today, which we are going to look into the session. Well guys, the first thing what we have is the architecture. Let me go through with this. Well guys, architecture. SAP Business Object Business Intelligence 4.1 pays a different architecture compared to the other tools, where architecture of any application or any tool is nothing but the arrangement how it works. The basic flow inside the tool and the basic arrangement at the infrastructure side, how it works. That is nothing but my architecture. Well, based on the architecture only, each and every tool would be function. So we are going to experience the architecture of my business object. Well, in this 4.1, SAP has given a 6-layer architecture or 6-tier architecture, where the base of this architecture are again going to be my data tier, and then this is at the bottom. Data tier is at bottom. Then we have the processing tier, which is going to tackle all the work or all the processes which is going to happen inside the business object business intelligence infrastructure. Going onward, we have a storage tier to store the information coming from some of the specific tool like Crystal Report and Dashboard, because as you know that Crystal Report and Dashboard, they are not inside the package of business object. So for maintaining or storing data coming from these two BI tools, we must have to have storage tier. So especially in this storage tier, we store we store uh, all those data coming from Crystal Report and Dashboard as a Crystal Report cache and Dashboard cache with input-output files. So anyhow, I'm just going to enlist all those tiers over here first of all, and then we'll look in depth about each and every tier and all the services and the server and role and responsibility of these tiers one by one. Well, as I mentioned, it's a 6-tier architecture. Comparing to 4.1, 4.1 has 6-tier, where SAP has just they have excluded one tier and they have included 2 of the new tier, or you can say one tier has been divided in 2 parts. Well, after data tier, previously we used to have intelligence tier and then we used to have processing tier, but now we are having directly processing tier and then storage tier. Well, storage and processing was together previously, and now it's been kept out to make sure that it's only going to give you a functionality to store the data related to Crystal Report and Dashboard and input-output files. Well, after doing a storage, we have to manage all those things because we have did a lot of processes, right? We took the data has been processed by processing tier, and if the data is coming from Crystal Report and Dashboard, it will be stored here. Well, these all things is happening. Then we must have to do the management. So on top of the storage tier, we have management tier. And this management tier is a central management servers which is going to manage my whole infrastructure of business object. So we got management tier on top of the storage tier. Well, going onward, as we know that the management tier is going to manage the whole infrastructure of business object. As a result, we are going to access couple of data, which is our couple of management functions, which is based on web application. Like we know that we have a tool inside business object known as CMC, Central Management Console, which is admin console. As we know that it's an admin console and it's also a web-based tool. We need web application servers to support it. Well, when we did the management, we also looking for all administrative tools to link on it and do this process. So we have next tier, which is known as a web tier, where all the web related functions or servers are kept here. Well, going on, what we have nothing else but the client tier, where all my client tools are, or all my tools are placed here. So this is my whole infrastructure of your business object, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things here before going to have a detail. Combining together my storage tier and processing tier, if we combine together, we call it the main infrastructure of business object, because the whole process started from here. If these two are not properly working, we can't do any management, or we don't need web tier and the client tier as well. Where the processing tier and storage tier is called as the main infrastructure of business object. It's the core infrastructure of BI 4.1. Well, these two tiers, you must have to remember, processing tier and storage tier, these are the two tiers which are taken as core infrastructure of BI 4.1. Well guys, let's take a look how things are placed in this architecture and basically the flow of entire tier. This is going to be flowed out with this direction. We're starting from data tier, then processing tier, then storage tier, the management tier, web tier, and client tiers. So let me take first of all the data tier part and let me elaborate it. Then we'll move on to look into the other tiers as well. My data tier. Well, when the matter is for data tier, we are talking about all the data sources possible under business object. Well, let me enlist all the data sources which is placed under data tier. So first data source we have is my universe. The second data source we will have my ANA. The third one is my BAX query. We will have also my files. We will have also nowadays Hadoop as a data source. Well, we also have some of the data sources like OLAP sources. We also have one analysis view as a source. So these are my enlisted sources as of now inside the data tier part, where data tier from the name itself is pretty clear that it's gonna take up all the sources which is going to be used for reporting purpose. So these are my enlisted sources which is generally going to be used under my business object business intelligence 4.1. So this is the part and which deals with the data tier. Well guys, moving on, we have processing tier. So all the processes going to be happen for these data sources with the data sources going to be enlisted onto the processing tier. As I'm mentioning that processing tier and storage tier are my core infrastructure of BOBI. Based on these two tier only my business object is running. So definitely all the major servers are going to be placed over here. So first of all, let me enlist all the servers, and then we'll look into the tool side for the core servers running inside the business object. Well, processing tier, as the name is, processing. What exactly it's gonna process? Well guys, processing tier process my different types of jobs. Like one of my jobs is adaptive job, another job is processing job, and as it is running on top of the data tier, it's also going to process my connections. Connection to the 64-bit servers for 64-bit system and 32-bit system. Also, it's going to pull out my crystal report, processing server, and application server over here. Well, let me enlist it over here so that it will be properly clear. So the servers running under the tier, under the architecture of business object business intelligence 4.1 is nothing but one is my adaptive job server, then we have my adaptive processing server, then we will have the connection servers for 64-bit and 32-bit to build a connectivity to the sources. Well, guys, this is connection server dealing with 64-bit system where connection to the 32-bit will be dealt by the different server. Why we have a different servers over here? Excuse me. We know that that business object has a lot of work, a lot of activities going on inside it. Well, all the activities, how it will be managed by the single server. It can be managed by the single server. As a result, we must have to have independent server for each and every operation going to be happen inside the business object business intelligence for that one. Well, these are the purpose servers to be used for different purposes. Well, let me elaborate. Let me highlight all the servers. Then we'll be elaborating what exactly they are going to do under this processing tier. Well, let me list few of them, which is related to Crystal Report. Like we have specially dedicated server for Crystal Report, and we have we also have for my web intelligence and dashboard too. So let me list all of them, and this is nothing but my Crystal Report, processing server, and basically Crystal Report 2011. It's nothing but 2011 processing server. And then we'll have my Crystal Report application server, especially dedicated server over here for Crystal Report side. We also have dashboard processing server. We also have web intelligence processing server for web intelligence tool. Web. So these are my enlisted applications so far. These are my enlisted servers so far under this processing tier. There are a couple of more, like adaptive servers for support of my web intelligence and Crystal Report both. Well, these all are. Let me take it from the first one, adaptive job server. This role of this adaptive job server is to maintain all the scheduled job to be run at what time. Like when we're doing scheduling of jobs, that scheduled job would be processed by or decided to be run at what time will be by the adaptive job servers only. This adaptive job server's role is to manage or to schedule a job which is going to be run at a specific time. Well, as you can see here, adaptive processing server. It's just for scheduled job. Okay, but the processes are going to be happen by adaptive processing server. So anyhow, you can do the scheduling of your job, and at the same time, processing is also going to be happen. So no interruption is going to come across to the site when scheduling and processing both is going to happen at the same time, simultaneously. What we are looking at is a virtual servers. They at the physical side, you can make it different, or you can place it in a single server. Depend upon the capacity or type of work you have to do at the business side. These all are designed. Well, if the strength is more, we may go for different servers for this adaptive job server and processing server. We must have to understand one thing. We have one service which holding up all these nodes. That is nothing but SI, server intelligence. Under server intelligence, these all servers are running. Well, it will be more easy to understand when we look inside the tool and we'll look inside the central configuration management tool, which actually used for managing my servers and services. Well, take a look here. We know that Apache Tomcat for BI4, this Apache Tomcat is web-based support application, which is going to support to run all web applications, right? Where another instance which is very, very important into this list is my SI, Server Intelligence Agent. So this service is going to manage the whole infrastructure, the business object enterprise server. It is going to maintain the whole infrastructure of business object. All the servers are running inside this SI only. So when we are going to look into this manage server option under the central configuration manager, it is going to give me all list of servers running inside it. Let me show you. If you can see here, these are the virtual servers which is supporting to run a business object, where I can see the major one or main one inside this list is my central management server. Well, this central management server, we call it in short CMS. It's a central management server which holding up or which is responsible for managing my repository. My repository is placed on the server. So this is a categorized at management tier. This is not at the processing tier. As we can see, adaptive processing server, crystal report processing server, my event is also there, right? Whatever event servers, adaptive job server, and web intelligence processing server. One second. Connection server for 32, crystal report application server, and dashboard processing servers. Well, these are my servers which is running at the processing tier for all responsibility related to process. Well, these are the server. Let me highlight once again. Dashboard, my crystal report processing server, my adaptive processing server, my application server, and connections, as it is the processing server running on top of connection, web intelligence processing server, and adaptive job server, and this is also there, adaptive processing server. These are the server. Take a look. These are the servers which is running under the processing tier. As we have taken the first one, adaptive job server. Role of adaptive job server is to maintain scheduled job. Well, who's going to be responsible for all the processing of scheduled job? The adaptive processing server will come into action and they will maintain the whole work which is being scheduled and maintained by adaptive job servers. Going on what, guys? As we can see, connection servers, connections for the 64-bit, connection for the 32-bit. Well, these two different types of connectivity how about scaling? For instance, we need to so much work how to scale these servers. Well, I'm not clear with the point, sir. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Your question is, how about scaling? For instance, we need to so much work, how to scale the server? Well, I'm not clear with the point. Yeah, we can have multiple instances as well. As I mentioned here, these are standard now. What we are discussing is the standard servers, but it can be divided and it can be more based on the type of work at the business site. If I have a more load, I can have more instances. If you go to this tool, what is that of these servers, right? As a whole, or these individual servers separate? These are separate servers, independent. As you can see, these are independent servers. As I have mentioned here, these are independent servers. Look at here. This is the virtual picture of your whole infrastructure of business object, where we have different servers categorized at different layer under the architecture. So these are the main. Okay, let me unhide it. Okay, now you can read out. Let me go one by one, then you can read out. You are having adaptive processing server. I hope you are able to read out now. We have already listed them onto the slide. We have adaptive processing server. We have adaptive job server. I'm just going one by one. Okay. Then we have to manage the connection. As we are running on top of this data sources, we are going to manage the connection coming from 64-bit, coming from 32-bit. So my connection servers are, yeah. Also, we are going to talk about the role and responsibility of these servers. As I have mentioned, adaptive job server role is to maintain my scheduled job. Well, this role and responsibility can be elaborated, and it can be taken up by this virtual picture and flashy picture given by SAP. Well, I'm going to the processing server. Yes. We can have multiple. We can have multiple. As you can see, this is purely dedicated. Thank you, sir. Well, you can have any number of servers dedicated for a particular one. This management, like a configuration manager, allow you to create any number of servers by defining it by your own. From this place, or even it can be defined from the CMC, which is administrative console inside the business object. Okay. Well, let me get into this and come to the point now. And this is my role and responsibility. Well, all the processes related to my Crystal report 2011, or the new version what we have is 2013. So we have now a server for 2013 as well. Well, these 2011 and 2013 is not anything, but it's showing the version and the year of release when it is been done. Well, Crystal Report 2011 has been released in 2011 when SAP has released 4.0, where now recently SAP has released Business Object Business Intelligence 4.1 in 2013. So Crystal Report group also have a new version called 2013 with little bit modifications, okay, or enhancement you can say. So all the processes of job, like we are having input and output happening based for the Crystal Report. All the processes are going to be done for this Crystal Reports by this processing servers only. All those tasks, like when you process the data source under the Crystal Report, when you do the processing of your report for exporting it to the repository or Crystal Report platform, those all things are happening based on my Crystal Report processing servers. Where the whole application will be maintained by my application server dedicated for Crystal Report. We have dedicated application server for Crystal Report. Well, as there is like a requirement to maintain first of all the infrastructure of my Crystal, and then I can do the processes. That's why we have another instance which is known as application server dedicated for Crystal Report. The same way, guys, we have dashboard processing server. As this dashboard is very light tool or handy tool, it doesn't need to maintain my whole application server. Well, it's only going to be tackled by the processing server, where it has the cache servers onto the top tier under the storage one. Well, we are talking about the processing tier. All the processes related to the scheduled job, events, all the processings of the connections, everything will be dealt over here. Well, I can see also one of my important BI tools process is also going to be dealt by this processing server separately. Let me take you through over here the flashy picture of my architecture. Well, you can see my adaptive job server, my adaptive processing server, my connection server, my Crystal Report processing server. This is the link what we have over here, which you can follow, guys, for looking into the elaborated picture of your architecture one by one, systematically in a flashing manner. I have just forwarded you a link, and sir, font can't be increased because this is a fixed font, and I can do one thing. I can increase the size of this browser, so I think that will make sense. I hope like this is pretty good, right? Okay, perfect. I hope you can see now because it's running in the browser. Yeah, you can follow through with the link, and this will give you the whole picture about the architecture which we are discussing over here. So this is going to contain the whole infrastructure for processing, my connection maintenance, and all the other tasks. Let's me move on with the another tier, which is nothing but my storage tier. As we have mentioned earlier also, these two tiers, storage and processing tier, is my whole and soul of my business object. So let me get to it, and let me highlight those servers which is running under storage tier. Well, under storage tier we have Crystal Report, Dashboard, input-output file repository server. These are the major server we have under the storage tier. First thing, we have Crystal and Dashboard cache server. We have Crystal cache server. We have no, it doesn't need any RDBMS databases. As we are mentioning, this is a cache server. So some of the memory will be dedicated in the file system or onto the server where they manage these caches. Yeah, it has its own storage. Well, here we have a dashboard cache server, which is going to maintain my cache of dashboard, and all the process of this cache for the dashboard will be dealt by this dashboard cache server. Then we have input-output file repository server, basically one for input and another for output. All the input-output file is going to be deal by these servers. Well, at the storage tier, we know that, guys, the major responsibility of this storage tier to maintain how the movement of data will happen. As of now, we've seen how the processing is going to happen, how my linking is going to happen from the data sources. Well, now we are looking at, like, once the data has been processed, how it can be taken into the application. So basically, when you talk about the cache server of Crystal Report, if the data is placed on the cache, how it is going to be patched out under the application, that is going to be happen or with the support of cache server, which is dedicated for Crystal Report, which is dedicated for dashboard as well. Well, we are not enlisting the BI tool inside the package of Business Object Business Intelligence, Webby. Webby doesn't have like outside independent cache where it is directed based on repository. So everything is already placed onto the repository for Webby Rich Client or Webby web application especially. So not to forget, because that is one of the important tool inside my business object for reporting purposes. Well, we have independent input file server and output file server for all the movement happening inside the application and all the movement which is going out from the application. Like when we creating any new file or new document, my input file server will come in action. Well, when we are trying to open my output file server will be coming into the action. This is the role and responsibility of the servers placed under my storage tier. Well, let me move onward with the other tier we have. We have management tier. Basically, this management tier is used for managing my whole servers and also to manage some of the instances, like it manages the repository. The major server under my management tier is my CMS, Central Management Server. Two of the servers which is really important at this tier is my CMS, Central Management Server. The Central Management Server is used to maintain my repository of business object, where if this server is not working, you will not be able to log in or connect with your repository of your business object. That's why inside the tool, as I have mentioned already, when you look into the managed server and when we are going in with specifying my credentials, we can see at the top we have Central Management Server. So this Central Management Server, if it is not running, if it is not working, we will not be able to log into the repository. We are not able to connect with the repository. So role and responsibility of this Central Management Server is to manage my repository, or you can say to make establishment or connectivity to the repository. So this holds my repository on the server's end. Fine, guys, CMS, Central Management Server. Then moving onward, we have one event server. When we do a scheduling of jobs, we create an event. We create events. So who is going to take care of those events which is already been created in calendar? Because we are not processing the those reports at the same time. It may be processed later. So they are already been scheduled onto their time as an event inside the calendar. Event is nothing but it's a specified date or time inside the calendar. Like we do create an event which is going to be happen first, second, third, like that systematically ordered. Systematically ordered plan is nothing over here, is an event. So who is going to take care of event which is going to be created under the CMC? So Central Management Console. Well, that will be tackled by the event server. My event server is going to maintain my event created at the CMC level. Well, another important server we have at the management tier is my SI, Server Intelligence. We know that SI is another one, Server Intelligence Agent. This is the one we have at the management tier, SI. In short, Server when you look into this, onto the tool side, we can find out this SI is running on my whole and soul instances. Like, look at your Server Intelligence Agent. This agent is a service which holding up all the nodes of these servers. If you look at here, these all are running based on my Server Intelligence Agent. If my Server Intelligence Agent is not running, if it is stopped, we can't start any of this. So this need to be started first, and then we have to start one by one these all servers placed inside the CMC or CCM anywhere. So the role and responsibility of this SI is to keep all the instances or keep all the nodes for all the servers, where all the servers will be managed by this service under this service, we can say that. So that is been placed onto the management tier as it is responsible for managing all the nodes of the servers which is used inside the infrastructure of business object. Well guys, I hope you are pretty clear about the point where we have said processing tier and storage tier is my whole and soul of my business object infrastructure. Well, you can see this management tier is fully dedicated for management of different part. Well, management of repository, management of event, management of my nodes of the servers are going to be tackled by the management tier. Well, let me move on and let me come to the point next to the management tier. We have web tier. Web tier is specially designed over here for all the web-based applications and all the web services options, all the web applications which is going to be enlisted over here. If you look at here, the web tier is going to be having your web servers, your web application server, your web application container server, web applications, and web services. We know that what web servers used to be. When we look at you here, web servers receives HTTP requests sent from the web client. Well, it is going to maintain those processing which is going to happen under by the requested by HTTP. The web server holds and manages static connect such as HTML and JS files. Well, if the processing is related to these type of extensions, definitely these servers will come in action, which is nothing but web server. So the first server we have is my web server under this category. Well, the next server we have is my web server applications, right? As you can see here, web application server or web server application. Well, this web server application will allow us to translate layer between web browser and rich application. Basically, when you look at to this applications like CMC, my BL Launchpad, how it's running. Basically, how it's running with the help of my web application servers only, or web applications. There are two things. Web application server is maintaining my web application communication which is going to be happen. It's allowing me to access all the web-based applications. Well, you can see here the description about the web application server is a web application server acts as a translation layer This works as a translation layer between a web browser. Between a web browser or a rich application. We are talking about web browser and rich application. And the SAP Business Object Business Intelligence Platform. Well, it's talking about two of it. Web application to the business object, rich application to the business object. So it makes or it relates to process my web application services. Well, the web application server hosts web applications, web services, and software development kit (SDK). Basically, it runs onto the Java-based app platform by helping with Apache Tomcat platform. Various web application servers running on Windows, Unix, and Linux are supported. Well, it's just elaborated picture about my web application server. This role and responsibility of web application server to make or to do the translation between my web browser to the business object business intelligence platform, or as a rich application to the business object business intelligence platform. Well, going onward, we have, let me put it onto the slide as well. We have web application server here. Now, going onward, we have web services. My web application container server. This is the new one which is featured inside the 4.1 pack. Okay, so web application container server. Web application container server in SAP Business Object Business Intelligence Platform server that allows SAP Business Object Business Intelligence Platform web services and web applications such as Central Management Console and BI Launchpad to run without the need for previously installed Java web application server. Like if you wanted to run it Central Management Console and BI Launchpad based on to the current version, there is no required installation, then this web application container server will be running, because this will contain all the requisite which is going to be used for running these two of the web-based tool under the Business Object Business Intelligence Platform. That is also called as WAX. WAX is my web application container server, which contains all the prerequisite platforms which is going to be used for running this my CMC and BI Launchpad. Two of the tools we have under web-based, which is going to be run without having Java Web Application Server. So this will contain already this instance of Java Web Application Server, which help it to run my CMC and BI Launchpad, where this one is newly introduced into this part and into this part of web service as well. WAX is my one of it. So let me categorize it over here. Sorry. This is nothing but web application my web application my container server. Well, we also have web services running over here for maintaining my web services. So maintaining all the web applications which is newly introduced, the all URL which is going to be used under my Business Object Business Intelligence Platform, which is going to be accessed from the different location, will be helped and supported by web services only. This is new one. Well, web services runs in the web application server to process requests from the client application. Web services can be called remotely. As we know that if we have a URL, we can call it from the remote location as well. For exchanging information that is not dependent on a specific platform, that is the role of my my web services, the URL, object model, or programming language. Well, that is going to be called as or that is going to be dealt by web services. We know that what is web services. Web services is nothing but it's a URL given for the support of or to access data remotely without having a constant of location and system from any location. Well, this web services is newly introduced inside this like web tier to help out all the web services which we are utilizing under the business object business intelligence platform. Guys, we are using many times the web services as the source from which we are going to access some of the data which is coming from outside, or sometimes we are also accessing some of the data which is coming inside based on the universe as a source, based on the specific query working as web services. So that all will be tackled or dealt by this web services server, basically present onto the web tier. We also have web application. We are going to elaborate it once we enlisted my web services. And then we will have my web applications. Basically, if you go and take a look onto this web application server, this web applications run in a web application. Basically, this instance has been given to run my all web application. This is for support. This is going to execute my HTTP request, where web application server is going to let the browser work for all the web-based applications, where web applications here we are going to help out the web server, the web application server, to support it to run these web applications. All the web applications are going to be run with the help of web application server. Well, for support of web application server, we have a dedicated instance called web application, which is going to find out whether it is a web application or not. If it is detected, it is going to support this web application server to run it. So this is going to make sure that this is web-based or desktop-based. Well, this is going to do the detection, and this is going to do the execution of my web-based application. Execution, what I mean by that, like it is going to be launched up by using the web application servers only. So this is about your web tier, guys. We have at last at the end, which is nothing but my client tier, where all my tools are placed at the client tier side. We know that what are the tools we have enlisted there, but anyhow we are going to look it once again. My client tier. When I'm going to this client tier, I can see all of my tools present inside the business object, especially where we are focusing on the important tools we have under this platform. That is nothing but my the most important is my central management console, then my central configuration management, then my different one, web application, web intelligence, and my web intelligence desktop base, which is called as a rich client, and my information design tool, my crystal report for enterprise, my crystal report 2011, my dashboard, my crystal report viewer 2011, which is used for viewing the report of crystal report only. Well, there's a new introduced couple of tools are newly introduced inside it. Well, we are going to look onto that also, where we have universe design tool. I'm just focusing on major tools available inside it, where a couple of tools are like specific purpose tool. We have newly introduced part inside this client tier is mobile client. Well, nowadays in this business object, in this analytics under the SAP, under business object business intelligence 4.0, specially given for the support of end users to get the report in the mobile devices. There is a specific client use over here to maintain the server for mobile devices where you can deploy all your reports, which is going to be accessible by the open source application present in your marketplace. Well, what I'm talking about, you can access all your reports using your iPhone, iPad, your BlackBerry mobile, your Android phone. You can access your reports over there if you have maintained your mobile client services, where we have a specially dedicated server for mobile. When my mobile server is running, if I have a dedicated repository, we'll take around 15 to 20 minutes more. Mr. Kanan, you can talk to Kapil regarding the time, and he'll definitely going to help you out with the best time. Just kindly communicate with Kapil. He will give you the best time suitable for you. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your presence and your time. Thank you. Well, Web Rich Client. This is the tool which is over here. Web Intelligence Rich Client. And this is a reporting tool. This tool gives us solution under business object for query design, my report development, my analysis performance. So all these three different type of tasks will be done under this Web Intelligence Rich Client. This is gonna open. It's opening up. You can see that it's Web Intelligence. When a Web Intelligence application placed at the desktop, then it will be called as Rich Client. Where if it is present at BI Launchpad, it will be called as Web Intelligence application only. Where now we are calling it Web Intelligence Rich Client because it's placed on to the desktop. It's working as a client-based tool, right? For reporting purposes. Where we are just getting into it because it has more data sources compared to Web Intelligence application placed on BI Launchpad. Anyway, we are going to look both the places. There's no difference. I just want to mention all of you. There is no difference with functionality and look and feel underlying this tool except than the data sources. So this tool got launched now. Look at here the name of it, which says Web Intelligence Rich Client. So it's nothing but it's a web intelligence application which is working as a rich client. As from the architecture we have seen, a rich client will be considered as a desktop-based tool. As it is a client-based tool, it is there onto the desktop. Well, the look and feel we have to see, we have to start with this tool and we have to look into each and every functionality of it. Well, I'm just going to give you the overview of this tool, and then tomorrow we'll see. We'll start with the picture of this tool specifically. Well, as we can see, we have some of the sources available here. Universe is a prime source for reporting under business object. We have Excel as a source, which is coming from the local directory. Bex is a business explorer or the data sources coming from BW application. We have a end-to-end data warehousing application under business object. That is nothing but a Bex. We also have analysis view for performing analysis on top of the report which is predefined or already been developed. We also have another source which is nothing but a text document. Well, if I am having a text document where I have maintained my business data, I can even use it for reporting purpose under my Web Intelligence Rich Client, which is going to be accessible from the local directory present onto the system where this tool has been installed. Well, web services, we know that web services mean. Web services is an option by which we can use it any source as the URL. So OLTP is your transactional process. On top of this transactional process or your databases which is dedicated to OLTP, we are designing a universe. It's not about OLTP and OLAP. It's about the sources, the prime sources available inside it. When you're considering, when you're saying OLTP, your transactional process will definitely have some database where the data will be managed, right? So as that database could be anything. It could be Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, Teradata, or anything. So what we are doing, we are designing a semantic layer on top of that database layer. As I have already mentioned, like we have to look into the each and every functionality one by one. We'll go on it, where I'm just elaborating the sources we have enlisted inside this reporting tool. So yeah, this is after ETL. No, it's nothing to do with the ETL, sir. Basically nothing to do with the ETL. Okay, let me tell you the process here. Actually, this is my prime source for reporting under business object, universe. So why this universe need to be designed? There'll be something between the database to this application which is complex to operate on it. That's why we need a universe. So for on top of each and every OLTP system, we can say we design universe if required, and by using a universe we access the data from there. There's nothing to do with the ETL. We have to establish a connection. We'll see those points when we look into this universe designing tool or information design tool. Well, we have to understand the fact, what are the data sources we have and what universe as a data source is. It's a solution on top of database. Okay, for highlighting this point, because I'm just mentioning that we are going to just introduce ourselves with this tool, then tomorrow we are going to look into the sources, then it will be easy to understand. Well, I'm just again saying universe is a prime source under this business object for reporting purpose, which is nothing but a solution, a reduced complexity of database layer. We know that we have certain complexity at the database side. That complexity has been removed, and as a solution we got a universe. So we have to do modeling. We have to do semantic layer creation, but we are not doing ETL anywhere. We are connecting my universe designing tool or information design tool to the source, OLTP source or OLAP source, doesn't matter, through the third-party communicator, ODBC or JDBC. So there is nothing to do with the ETL. I got it. Perfect. So these are my sources over here. We must have to understand the rich client has more sources. Some of the sources are coming externally, either from local directory or from web services as a URL. Well, I just wanted to let you give you the look and feel here, and then we are good for the day. Tomorrow we'll start up with this tool and we'll look into each and every functionality. That time I'll give you the picture about the universe, how it will be designed, and basically what are the complexity we have under the report database layer. Okay, so when I'm accessing the universe as a data source or any of the data source, when you're going to select, take a look here. We are under this platform. This is showing all the data sources available here. If I'm proceeding with new option from this menu bar, it is going to give me the list of data sources available. If I'm selecting one of it, if I'm saying OK, it is going to prompt me to authenticate, because we know that universe belongs from the repository. Universe is the data source which is belonging from the repository. Where Excel belongs to the local directory, Bex belong to repository, analysis view belong to repository, text belong to local directory. Web services also belong to the local platform. So as we need authentication to get into the repository, then only I can see the list of universes available inside the repository. So we are going to prompt with the logon dialog box or logon window, where we have to authenticate ourselves with the username and password mentioned or given or assigned to us. While we are inserting our credentials, it's gonna take us to the list of universes present inside the repository. This is my repository view for the universe. If you can see here, these are my universes, which is under my repository. Okay, so I'm gonna select one of it, eFashion Universe, which is popular inside the category, and we are going to use it. eFashion and Island Resort Marketing going on for looking into each and every options present inside it. So let me go with it by selecting the eFashion Universe. I'm going to say select, and that's going to give me a query panel. Because we have already selected a data source, then what do I need to do? On top of the data source, we have to perform my query designing. Let me give you a complete view of this thing, where this is my presentation, and how things work here is like at the bottom layer we will have data source, right? And on top of this data source, we have to design a query. What we are going to do is we are going to design a query on top of it. And what exactly my query is? Query is nothing but a technical term used for a question. If I have a question, I can say that I have a query. So query is a technical term used for questioning. So I'm going to question to my business data. So how do you question it? I can say that, oh, could you please tell me the sales revenue generated from Boston? I can say another question. I can ask another question to this data source. I can ask to the data source to saying that, could you tell me the product sold in a year or in all the year present inside the database? So basically, these are my questions, which is going to be framed up in a proper order. That is nothing but a query designing. That process is called as query designing. Okay, on top of the query, or we can also say the result of the query is going to be, because it's a question, right? It's definitely going to be answered. So how do it answer it? Basically, it will be answered when we are going to execute it. When we are going to run this query, this query result will be returned in form of report. Well, this is a picture of my question. So report is a picture of my question, and this will be analyzed. This picture will be analyzed by using all analytical function available inside it. Analysis. So basically we have to perform the analysis on top of the report. The report will be delivered by designing a query, where query is nothing but a question which is framed up systematically on top of my data sources, which I am going to ask my data source. So these are the process which we have to deal it under my web intelligence basically. So mine is web intelligence. Or we can also call it in any BI tool. This is the process which is done under any BI tool. So this need to be understand. Basically, this is the flow which is running under my WebA. So remember this, and also let me take you over here. As we said, the first thing on top of the data sources we have to do is query designing, right? So here we do designing a query, and when we run the query, we'll get the report. Well, the look and feel of this part is not been changed. The only thing which is changed at this platform is my one data preview pane. There is new pane introduced inside this query panel. This is called query panel, where we do designing of query. So this part has been divided into my 4 sections, where first extreme left section is called as data panel, where all this source which we have selected will come with the data over here. Well, moving on to the right hand side, on the top we have a result object pane, which is used for designing my query or framing out my question. And if you have to restrict the flow of the data inside the query, we have another pane next to my result object known as query filter. So if you have any condition to be applied on the query or on your question, I can say that like this: show me the revenue of all the cities in US. Well, city is going to be Arizona. If I say like this, we are putting condition over here. So those conditions will be dealt by this query filter. Query filter. As we are designing a query over here, the filtration is going to be happen by the query filter pane. Okay. We have a newly introduced pane over here into this 4.0 is known as data preview pane, which is used for previewing your data before going into the report without running the query. Some of the time we are not allowed to run the query before it's been approved by the admin. So how do we see the query report here? How do we make sure that the query is giving a correct data? I must have to preview it. So data preview pane is for that specific task. I can preview the data over here. Where I just wanted to tell you guys, we have 3 different type of data sets available inside the universe. When we are talking about universe, we have a special structure. I'll take 3 more minutes of yours, and then we are good for the day. Universe. Universe, as we know, that it's a solution on top of the database. So definitely, it doesn't contain the same structure what we have onto the database layer. We know that database structure is tabular structure, table structure. We call it tabular structure, right? So tabular structure means all the data will be listed in column in form of rows, where that structure is not followed under my business object. Business object has its own structure, and universe is a solution under business object. So we have to know that the structure of my universe as well, where my whole and soul business object structure with this. where business object structure is different. It is not going to be my tabular view. It is a view or it is called as classes and object view. Well, we will have classes, and under this class we will have objects. Where tables are represented as a class and row or columns are represented as an object. So this object, the first object we are having under my universe structure or business object structure, is a dimensional object. Dimensional object. This dimensional object is categorized for dimension type of data. All character type of data is categorized as a dimensional object. Like you can have an example over here saying that we will have our example is like we have year is one dimension, country is another dimension, customer is another dimension, and we will have city is another dimension. So this is the example of my dimensional object, which is part of my structure of whole business object, where this is called as class. Class is nothing but it's a folder which contains my similar types of objects, or it's a container of similar types of object present inside the database. So we categorize it, we classify those objects. So we call it classes and objects is my structure of my business object, where classes are not responsible for query designing. They are responsible for defining the object and categorizing the object. Well, what is the defining the object? What is categorizing the object? Well, if I have dimension type year, country, customer, city, this is one type, right? So one type, but it has a classification. Year is time period classified, country is location classified, customer is customer classified, city is location classified. Well, all the location classified need to be kept it in one folder. All time classified things will be kept it in one folder. So that is what my agenda is, to keeping everything systematically as they are classified for. So classes are here for organizing the object and defining the object. If I name a class saying that time period, then by the name it is pretty clear that all the object inside it will be related to time only. Like year, quarter, month, week, those all things are there relating to the time period. This is the time period hierarchy, we can say. So that is dimensional object. But we haven't have only dimensional object. We have three different types of object under my structure. One is my dimensional object, another one is my detail, and third one is my measure object. So let me elaborate those all three. We have three different types of object as I mentioned here. So one is my detail object, another one is my measure object, where this is my detail object. The use of this detail object is to, this is my detail, or we may can show it with different icon, or it's not proper, so I'll go with the same one. This is nothing but a detail object. Detail object. What is detail object, guys? Detail object is nothing but it's a detail about the dimension. If you have any further detail about the dimension, that will be categorized as a detail object. Well, when there is a matter of specifying or elaborating your, what do you say, your another type of object, which is known as measure object, then we have, this is my measure object, measure object. Well, this measure object is nothing but it's an object which is going to be categorized as a numerical picture of the business. So what will be my numerical picture of the business? My sales revenue. If it is an employee table, we will have salary of an employee, which is categorized as the picture of my business. Okay, means all the numerical values are categorized over here as an measure object. Let me put up the example here. For the detail, I can say details are nothing but it's a further detail about further information about the dimensions, where further information like what we can have it for the dimension. If I'm taking a year dimension, my fiscal year will be my detail. If I'm saying customer address, it's birth date, anniversary date, date of birth, and date of anniversary. These are the things which could be the detail of the customer. If you're taking anyone, city has like how many streets and how many location divided, like how many parts of cities we are having. Those are my further detail object under this universe structure, under my business object structure. As you can see, classes holding up dimensions and dimensions holding up their details, where details are dedicated to the dimensions. It's not like that we are keeping detail of customer under the city dimension. It should be kept under the customer dimension only. Where measure is nothing but it's a numerical picture. As I have mentioned, it's a numerical picture of the business, which is giving the picture flow or business flow of a picture of my business flow. Well, that is nothing but my sales, revenue, cost, price, my salary, etc. is an example of my measure object. So we have to remember this thing, that under the universe I will have a different structure. I will have a class. Under the class I will have a dimensional object, and if there is a detail for that, then it will have a detail object. Otherwise we will have measure object. The same picture we are going to look into this. I have one source called eFashion Universe, where eFashion Universe has this class. Class is represented by the folder icon. This folder icons are nothing but a class, where name of these folders or classes are defining my object. When I say time period, definitely all the time related dimensions will be under it. When we say store, all the store related dimension will be here. When we say product, all product related information will be here. Say measures, we know that the third type of object we have is measure. Sales revenue, quantity sold, margin, discount, all these are my numerical picture. So that has been categorized separately because it's related to the whole, where I can see my time period class, which is going to have year, quarter, month, week, holidays, right? It's about the time. We can see in this dimensional type object, you can see this icon. This is representation of dimensional object, and this is the representation of your measure object, this icon. Sometimes we may have to go illiterate and we have to follow the icons. And these icons are my measure object icon, and this is my dimension object icon, where I can see a couple of dimension has plus symbol, where plus symbol resembles here to expand it. Well, when I'm expanding it, I can see there is something inside it, which is nothing but my detail object. I can see this is the representation of my detail object. Wherever you see the plus symbol, that means those dimensions are a container of the detail. Where measure doesn't have a detail, as it is a numerical picture, doesn't contain any detail. Remember that you never ever have to have any detail under the measure. You must have to interact your detail to the dimensions only, where these dimensions are going to be used for designing my query. When I have a question saying that show me the yearly revenue, so at that time, as we know that all the framing of query will be done under the result object, I will pick this object here because I have to show my yearly picture, and then I'll take my measure. Yearly picture means yearly revenue picture. So that is my query now. This is my query 1. This is my query 1. This is my question, one question, which is going to be returned over here with value, with record. If I do the refresh onto the data preview pane, it is going to give me the result over here. The query will run and it's given the result in form of this report, small report, where I have 3 different year data, and these are my revenue generated in these 3 years. So that is how we deal under this query designing, under this query panel. Well guys, more about this we'll see tomorrow when we meet up in the next session. So this is all about for today, and as we have mentioned that we have certain agenda that we have covered up these 2 things, and the last thing is my questioning. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Maybe tomorrow we are going to start up the session because it will be more proper. I hope like it's a good time to finish up the session. If you have any question or if you have any query, you can ask right over here, or you can even ask it tomorrow. There's no issue with that. May I know if you have any question here related to any point which we discussed today? Perfect. Sounds all right. Then this is all about, formally I can say this is all about for today. We'll meet up on tomorrow on the same time, same place, with the same link. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Kapil, you there?